And to confirm the attendance.
So we're just going to confirm the attendance. I'm here, Trustee Williams, Trustee Dawson. Here in the boardroom, Trustee Gauze.
I'm here.
Online, thank you. Trustee Hastings is in the room. Trustee King is in the room. Trustee Luca Rothman is on
Trustee Rothman
maternity.
is on leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Absent on maternity leave. Trustee Rajwani, right beside me. And we also have joining us Trustee and Chair Rachel Chernow-Slynn and Trustee Arts. Yes, our ex officio member.
And I'm here as well, Trustee Shan.
And welcome, Vice Chair Shan. So we are going to call the meeting to order and start with the TDSB land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and just reaffirming the board's commitment to truth and reconciliation and the actions contained there. Thank you. So we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Trustee Rajwani. All in favor? Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. And the next item in the agenda is delegation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
our delegate is not in the waiting room, has not arrived, and did not confirm their attendance this evening.
Okay, thank you for that information. So we will move on in the agenda. The next item is the Community Advisory Committee reports. The Inner City Community Advisory Committee report dated December 15, 2022. And the National School Food Program. Who is going to speak to that?
Hi, this is Omar Khan, the co-chair of the ICCAC. Can I begin speaking now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Omar Khan. I'm the ICCAC co-chair. Just a little bit of background about myself. So I work in the Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park areas, where I primarily work with newcomer refugees families. And for the last 7 years, I've worked with hundreds of refugee newcomers arriving in Toronto. And I've sat on boards and worked with organizations that do a lot of collaboration with schools in the TDSB. And so I was asked to join the ICAC a few years ago because of my experience working with kids in model schools. And so before I start talking in detail on the report that you see before you from the ICCAC regarding the National School Food Program, I want to particularly thank Trustee Arts, the previous ICCAC co-chair, for all her listening and research and work that led to the motion that you see. And I also want to thank our new ICCAC co-chair, Trustee Dawson, for continuing this work and the advocacy. Okay, so at every ICCAC meeting, we have an amazing group CSWs, of community support workers, who speak about the challenges and the successes they see in model schools. And a perpetual challenge raised by community support workers is the struggle to support hungry students and their families. So it's from snacks to gift cards to food boxes to connecting families with local supports. The CSWs are like tirelessly helping their school communities, and they tell us at ICCAC that more needs to be done. So the motion that you're seeing in front of you here was passed at our CAC, and it builds upon the concerns the community support workers have shared around the struggles to get good food to students, especially during the pandemic. So at ICCAC, we hear about the struggles of some of the board's most marginalized students, but probably all the trustees here, everyone here really, has heard about the need for snacks, lunch, like just good food in all their schools, not just in model schools. Because kids are hungry in schools, not just because of poverty, but also because of the vigorous activities they get up to, you know, the lack of time to eat before school. And I'm sure we could all list many reasons why kids are hungry when they get to school and when they're at school. So in 2020, a recommendation for the board to advocate for a national school food program came from the Environmental Sustainability Community Advisory Committee. And I actually suspect that most CACs are noticing this huge need. So following that 2020 motion, the board chair wrote a letter urging the government to fund a national school food program. So the federal government actually didn't respond to that letter. There was no response. But luckily, the city increased its funding for school food programs in 2022. And the city of Toronto is currently imploring the province and the federal governments to fund school food programs. So one of the reasons the community support workers keep emphasizing the food insecurity emergency at ICCAC is first, and we all know this, food prices have gone through the roof. But the thing you might not know is that in 2021, 1 in 5 children under 18 in Ontario were food insecure. And that's likely higher today in 2023. And to be clear on terms, food insecurity is defined as the inadequate or insecure access to food due to financial constraints. Okay, so now we're here in 2023, and there is much more need for school food programs than before the pandemic. And yet the budgets of school food programs can't afford the same quality or quantity of food that they did before. And I want to be clear, a national school food program, you know, it's not going to solve issues of poverty that we especially see at ICCAC. But what it's going to do is it's going to help all of our students at TDSV not go hungry in school, and it will relieve some of the burden on parents who sometimes have to make the tough choice to go without food themselves so their kids can eat. So, and the board knows these challenges, and it knows that these challenges go beyond schools, but also that schools can play a vital role in helping their community. Actually, the report that you see in front of you, actually at that same ICCAC meeting, Michelle Monroe talked about food sovereignty and food justice and how schools can get involved in community food projects. And you may have noticed some of the food sovereignty projects suggested as part of the latest school council innovation grants. So a school food program is also just a great way to engage the community and bring parents and caregivers into the school. Like community support workers have told us this over and over, that like food gets families in the school and involved. And I've seen that especially in the high school that I do a lot of work in, Mark Garneau Collegiate Institute, where the school council and school staff are working together to deliver food at school. So anyway, the reason we're bringing this forward now is, and this is where really the sort of the be it resolved part, right? Right now, the federal government is consulting on a national food program. And so the ICCAC is recommending that this committee pass a resolution like the one in 2020, so that the chair can send an updated letter to the federal government and all relevant levels of government, pushing for full funding of a national school food program. You know, our students and school communities need this. And so, yeah, I thank you. I thank you all for listening.
Are there any questions? Trustee Dawson?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Omar, for coming and speaking to this report and recommendation. I just want to echo the comments that you shared about your direct experience with some of our school communities in Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park. I too, prior to becoming a trustee, was working in those areas, and I understand that much of the work of the community support workers and even the school administrators was getting out food hampers to families. And so this is a really timely and important recommendation. So I really thank the committee for working on this, and also to my colleague trustee Arts. And I have a process question. Am I allowed to ask that of staff, like right now, through the chair?
Yeah, please ask your question.
Okay. What happens next? So if we adopt this recommendation, does it just mean that the chair goes ahead after we pass it at board, or do trustees have to make a motion? Okay, and I make the motion right now?
I believe we're going to move to accept the report, and then the recommendation can be moved.
Okay, so we accept the report, and after that point, I move the motion?
Yes.
What is before you is this report, and inside the report is the recommendation.
Right.
It is purely a recommendation at this juncture that would need a mover and a seconder at this meeting tonight.
Okay.
You're correct, Trustee Dawson. If it is adopted tonight, it will go to the board, and if it is approved at board, then the actions laid out will be followed through upon.
Okay, so do I need to just say I move to? Can I do that now? Sorry, again, I don't.
We have one more speaker, a question.
Okay,
So you're moving to accept the report?
I'm moving to
Okay.
accept the recommendation of the Inner City Community Advisory Committee. Is that the language I need to use? Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by trustee Rajwani. All in favor?
Any discussion? Is there any discussion?
Any-
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Would you like to speak to it?
If there's discussion.
Okay.
Trustee Chair Chernow-Slin?
So I would like to thank the ICCAC for bringing this forward and for the trustees for moving this. I think this is a really important motion. I think if we were to have a national a national food and nutrition program in our schools, not only would is this important for food insecurity, but for all kids, not everybody starts, for a variety of reasons, not everybody starts the day necessarily with a healthy meal. And we know that, fueling our brains helps us do better at school and learn better. So I think for a multitude of reasons, this is a really valuable initiative that we've been talking about for many years. This is something that trustees actually wrote about in 2020, and I know that's referenced in this motion. And so I'm very strongly in support of this, and I hope that my colleagues will support it. I think this would be a really valuable addition to students across our country. And I think that there is mounds of evidence that this is something that would be great for Canada. And we know when we look at other countries that do have programs like this, I always feel envious that we don't have it. And I mean really strong programs like in France. They have really pretty spectacular food for their kids at lunch. And I think not only does it fuel their brains, but it also sets people up for thinking about a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating. So I think this would be really great, and I hope everybody will adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Our next speaker, trustee Arts.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Khan for coming and speaking so eloquently to this recommendation and the work that he does with the ICCAC. And I just have one question. I'm not on the committee. I do hope everyone will support it. But under the other relevant organizations, I'm just wondering if, as a friendly request, if this letter could also be copied to OPSPA, because the Ontario Public School Boards Association, because they are also working on their own letter. And by copying to letters to OPSPA, we can also have them shared with the other boards across the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Arts. Are there any other comments? Trustee Chair Chernos-Lynn?
So I would just ask if that needs to be an amendment, and if Trustee Arts is moving that as an amendment, I'd be happy to second that amendment to have OPSPA copied on this motion.
Yeah, we would need a member. I see in the recommendation, the letter, the recommendation in Part B, the letter be shared with MPs, MPPs, and other relevant organizations. And we'd like to name OPSPA specifically as well. Is there anyone that would like to make that amendment?
I think
Move.
did Michelle and
She's not a member of the committee.
I will move that through the chair.
And seconder?
I will second it.
Trustee Goes. Do we need discussion on the amendment?
Thank you. Yeah, that's right.
Any comments, discussion on the amendment? Okay, can we move to approve the amendment? All in favor?
We're going to open the vote. We're going to open the vote.
Okay, eScribe is open.
Trustee Shan in favor.
Trustee Gauss in favor.
And then
It's not popping up on my eScribe, so Dawson in favor.
Chernos-Lynn in favor.
Trustee King in favor.
The discussion on the main part of this motion, and now we need. Okay, we're waiting for the vote.
Madam Chair, if Trustee Hastings could make his vote now.
Oh, we need your vote. We need your vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So are you in favor of this? In favor? Oh, thank you.
In favor.
Tyler, did you receive that? Trustee Hastings in favor?
Trustee is here on this committee. Okay, we see Trustee Shan, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support this recommendation and the motion and the need for a national program of such. But we also know that as a board, we can write letters and sometimes, every levels of government have their own priorities and end up prioritizing whatever is on their agenda. I would love to have, as this motion goes down to the board, I don't know if it's possible at all. I don't know what the process is, but would like to know what our current structure for programs, nutritional program is, and where it's being offered, who's offering, and what the scale of the support right now is, so that we can get a lay of the land, understanding of the programs. Some are supported by community organizations, some are by food banks, and some are run by parents and so on. So just to get a sense of where it's being offered and how it's being offered. if there's any report that is already existent, is that something that could accompany this recommendation as it gets to the board?
Was there staff that could speak? Was it just a comment?
Yeah, I mean, if there was any recent reports that were done on this, or a kind of status report that was done on it from the staff, would love to have, as a trustee coming into this term, would love to. If not, then maybe staff can let us know if there's any review that's happening as to when we would know.
And Associate Director Salman is in the room and could respond.
So thank you. And through the chair, in order to provide trustees with a fulsome information with respect to that request, we would need to go back to our staff in order to provide trustees with that information, not information we'd be able to provide at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just if there was anything that was done in the, was there, maybe a question is, was there been any kind of review that was done in the past 3 or 4 years around this particular issue within our school board?
Associate Director Salma.
Through the chair, approximately 3 to 4 years ago, with former Associate Director Curtis Innes, there was a review that was done around nutrition programs. And so that would be the last time I believe that there was a review of those particular programs at the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would be great if that review, if it's not additional work, just to be resent to trustees.
And we have a question, Student Trustee Shafkat.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest an amendment that the Ontario Student Trustees Association also be copied on the letter.
Do we have the result of the First Amendment vote?
Yes, they carried.
That carried?
8-0.
And now we have a mover for
Need a member to
a member to move.
Can move it.
Yes. Okay. Moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Chair Moslin. And do we need to speak to this amendment? Any questions or comments? Do we need to speak to this amendment? Okay, so let's open the vote.
Trustee Dawson in favor.
Curtis Lynn in favor.
Shan in favor.
King in favor.
Let's just wait a moment. We need the result of the vote on that second amendment.
Still in progress.
Madam Chair, just waiting on Trustee Hastings.
Trustee Hastings indicated that he's in favor.
Trustee Hastings in favor.
So that amendment is also carried. So now we are, it's already on the table. It's been moved.
Yes.
Seconded. Before we vote, a comment from Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, and through the chair, I can appreciate Trustee Shan's question, just to have, and so would that be a situation, again, this is, I think, maybe process question, would that be a situation where if the motion, it goes to board and is received, could there be like an appendix with that previous report? Is that a case where we would include the additional information in an appendix to the agenda, or?
So that's a procedural kind of operational kind of question.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Denise.
Hi, that is something that could be shared with trustees in Trustees Weekly.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. So any other questions or comments on the main motion as amended? It's been moved and seconded.
Nobody online.
Nobody online. So now we can move to the vote. All in favor of the motion as amended?
Dawson in favor.
King in
Shan
favor.
Ernest Lynn in favor.
Hastings in favor.
And we'll just wait for the results of that vote. It's been carried. Thank you. So we're going to move on in the agenda. The next item is staff reports, 2022 summer programs. And who will be speaking? Our Associate Director, Samo.
So through the chair, this particular report will be provided by System Superintendent Peter Chang. The report speaks to the summer programs from 2022, and TDSB has a full range of programming for both elementary and secondary, and some really outstanding programming. So System Superintendent Chang is online, and he'll be speaking to this particular report. Mr. Chang?
Thank you very much, Associate Director Salmon. And through you, Madam Chair, I'm pleased to present this year's summer program report for receipt. This report contains 17 distinct learning opportunities for students across the TDSB and other school boards, from early years to senior citizens, and from in-person and virtual classrooms. Altogether, approximately 31,000 learners participated in these programs. Students of all ages were involved in a variety of courses and programs in July and August that demonstrated the significant interests and needs for these programs. Students were inspired to excel in the early years programs, while older students were actively engaged in literacy and numeracy, summer music and art camps, and enrichment activities at some of the day camps. This year, the outdoor education summer camps returned since in-person learning was available. Secondary students earned up almost 15,000 credits this summer by taking e-learning, summer credit, or credit recovery courses. The Center of Excellence for Black Student Achievement offered an exciting Black Student Leadership Program to nearly 100 students from grades 10 to 12. TDSB offers summer experiences not only for K-12 students, but also to Toronto adults and senior citizens. We provide an important service for adult ESL learners and for those who wish to learn a new hobby or skill by taking a general interest course. Madam Chair, these summer experiences cannot happen without the dedicated teachers, principals, support staff, and the central leaders throughout the board. I would like to extend my deep appreciation to all staff involved in this year-long preparation for these exemplary summer programs. As staff, we've already begun the work for this upcoming summer. Early years, elementary and secondary schools are submitting their interest in becoming summer school sites, and departments from across the TDSB are also getting involved in starting the planning for the summer. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity to speak to the committee about TDSB's summer programs.
Thank you so much for that, Executive Superintendent Chang. Are there any questions? Trustee Dawson and then Student Trustee Shafkat.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you so much for putting together this report. And I really agree that we have some amazing, exciting summer programming opportunities for TDSB students. I have a couple of questions around African heritage. There was a pre-K summer program, African heritage or Afrocentric program, and I don't see that in the report. So I was wondering, does that fall under this portfolio? And if so, what was the participation like, and how was the program promoted, and where was it offered?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. As I said in the presentation, we have many collaborators that work with us. And I believe that that was one of the programs that was addressed specifically by the center. So if it's possible for me to ask System Superintendent Karen Murray to speak directly to that. Superintendent Murray?
Good afternoon, everyone. And actually, Trustee Dawson, it is reported in the report, the very first piece when they're talking about the pre-K program, the Excel program that you see there. It reports on both the Afrocentric pre-kindergarten, and it's also is speaking to the other program that we ran for pre-K that looks at culturally relevant and responsive. So the very, very first early years Inspired to Excel program speaks to the program that you're referring to.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Inspired to Excel. Perfect. Another question about African heritage offered through international languages. How is that curriculum developed?
Thank you. We're actually in the midst of revealing the revised African heritage curriculum. So thank you for asking that question. There's been a concerted effort by many writers in their international languages department. And so there has been work to freshen up and really bring into the pedagogy, the culturally relevant aspects of it. So it is a matter that is currently in place. And so as we look at African heritage language programs, African heritage programs in the across the board, that release of that curriculum will be happening shortly.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then that, just to clarify, would apply to the after-school program as well as then the summer program. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Yes, it is part of the international languages program overall.
Can I interject for a second to say that this summer program is, even though it could be used, it is, the curriculum there is uniquely designed by the educators who will be teaching and facilitating those courses. And that is the design system through the partnership with the Early Years Department and our department in Equity, Anti-Racism, and Anti-Oppression, and the Center for Excellence.
Thank you so much. That's excellent. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. These programs are truly amazing. Student Trustee Shafkat, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I just want to express appreciation to staff for preparing this report, having had the pleasure of participating in the Focus on Youth summer program this last year. I know the benefit students have partaking in these programs, as well as being able to see the Black excellence of students who partook in the Black Student Leadership opportunity throughout the previous school year. And I am glad to hear that planning is underway to continue this into the next summer. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next speaker, Trustee goes.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. I just had a quick question about the summer program. So I had a couple of families like reach out about finding like summer jobs for like high schoolers. So I'm just wondering if that fits a part of the summer programs. Like, is there programs that students are able to get like a summer job in their field that they want to go into?
If I may, Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, and thank you for that question, Trustee. The report speaks specifically to some of the learning opportunities for students across the TDSB, but there is definitely an aspect of summer employment that is provided by the Focus on Youth work that is done. There is funding from the ministry through the Focus on Youth, and we use the Focus on Youth program to support over the last summer, over 600 students through summer employment, and they had an opportunity to work in various departments across within the TDSB, the Center for example, Caring and Safe Schools, the legal department, and just to sort of get a taste of what possible futures and careers could look like. So opportunities for employment is there. But if you looked at some of the other programs that are listed in the report, most of them are for the learners primarily.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker, Trustee King.
Thank you. Through the chair, follow-up question for Superintendent Murray regarding the pre-K Afrocentric program. I'm just curious, because that one specifically targets pre-K, so we're looking outside of children that are currently registered. I'm just curious to learn a little bit more about what the outreach, what the uptake looks like for that, as well as any insights that might have been gained to help grow that program, if that's something that we're looking to do, or to hear if it's highly successful and we're already getting quite a bit of interest. Just curious what it looks like and how we communicate and connect with families at that stage.
Thank you. I can say that we have grown since we first started. When we first started, we had 4 locations, 1 in every learning center. Right now, we're up to about 12 locations. Over the times when we had to be online and virtual, it was also absolutely well attended. We have research that has been following the program from its inception, and the feedback from families have been absolutely overwhelming. One of the things that we've been doing is we offer every family that enters an opportunity to have some literacy resources that'll be used throughout the program, as well as resources for math and so forth. And we've witnessed when those backpacks that we put them in reaches homes, and how much it has made a difference in terms of beginning the journey of education before these young students make it into schools. Our communication is within the next little bit. We will have a conversation with Peter and his team about confirming the locations that we will be at. We then move into our flyers, which we would love to share and everyone can share out, that talks about the process. We do have a registration that families will fill out, but we promote everywhere. We promote locally within the schools that the programs are in, and the administrators and community support workers and others have really helped us a lot in getting the communication out and having the programs happening. I hope that answers the question.
That's very helpful, thank you, and I'm really happy to hear about the success and the growth of the program. The other thing that comes to mind for me, and maybe it's on your list and I just didn't hear it, is I think about city-run and Ontario-run daycares as well, and the families that access those and reaching them as if they're not already parents within our system, if they're prospective parents in our system, and whether or not that's an opportunity we're already exploring. That's not something you have to respond to here, but I just wanted to share that as well.
And thank you for that. And we have, and the only thing I will say is that sometimes the conflict the parents are finding is that they would like to bring their child, but they also have to be obligated to the daycare space, or they might lose their spaces. So those are some of the things that we've negotiated over the years, but willing to have a follow-up conversation.
Thank you, Superintendent. Really happy to hear that you're thinking about all those angles. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Shan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, the the program, the leadership program that was offered at Center for Excellence for Black Student Achievement at Churchill, I heard Superintendent Chang say that he had about 100 young people participate in it. Was there any kind of evaluation done? And I'll put the questions together and maybe get an answer together. Evaluation done since it's a pilot, and is there any space for expansion that's being considered? As I heard anecdotally, great feedback about the program. The other question I have is that, is the regular school leadership approaches in sync with the summer program so that these young people who go through this program can find meaningful leadership opportunities when they go back to their schools? If they're not from the same place, they could go back into different schools and have continuous impact and find ways to transition their skills into other roles. And so has there been any communication around that kind of a transitioning of opportunities?
Thank you. Did staff want to respond to that?
So through the chair, I'll ask Systems Superintendent Murray to start off with respect to the first part of the question, and then Systems Superintendent Chang to respond to the latter part with respect to the communication between the schools. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And so, yes, there's research actually tied to the Black Student Summer Leadership Program. The research comes in two ways. One is through the evaluation of the program with our senior research coordinator. And then part of the program is that all students are become researchers themselves and engage in youth participatory action research. So we have feedback from the student perspective, as well as we have feedback from our research team that works every day within the program with students. So we have research associates that works with the students as well as the coordinator. So there is a report that will be coming forward and we'll share once it's completed. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Murray. And with respect to the reach back to their home schools when they're finished with the summer programs, there's definitely a connection. It's albeit more of an informal connection between the homeschool and the students who participated in the Black Leadership Program. And that part of that connection is because the students who participated in this exemplary program also receive credits. So there is that direct tie back to the school because it's on their transcripts, and there are conversations that and the stories that come from this wonderful learning experience and opportunity that I had a chance to attend was absolutely eye-opening for me to see the growth that students can demonstrate in a short period of time. So they take that experience, they take the knowledge, they take the skills from participating back to their schools, and similarly, they bring that when they even enter the program. So it really is a wonderful back and forth between the homeschool and the great work done at the center.
Thank you, both superintendents. I think the research, when it's out, would be a great tool for us to advocate for more resources for the program to expand and so on, to both internally within our system, but also externally at the provincial level to support increased funding for programs like that. So that the fact that research and the review took place is helpful. And with respect to the transitioning back to homeschool, I understand the informal connectivity, but a lot of the time we know the level of marginalization that occurs for students who are particularly from the Black community in leadership opportunities within the homeschool. So it would be good to kind of somewhat formalize a bit of a process where, it is intentional that the schools that are receiving them back find meaningful opportunities for them to continue to lead in, if they're not already, in ways that can continue to be supported and mentored and so on. That's my comment. But I also have a question around international languages. I know anecdotally, again, from conversations, as I'm of Tamil heritage, the program at one point was in 6,000 people 6,000 students, and now almost halfway, I hear, down to, fairly significant drop. There are multiple reasons, including people moving out of the city, but there are some concerns around, I always, whenever I'm going to the community, I'm hearing concerns as well. So was there any review that was done? And can summer programs be used in a way that can generate interest back into the regular programs? And we know that there is demand, but it's just the sales aspect of the program sometimes is the issue. So if it's possible to connect the summer programs again, for I'm talking specifically around my experience with the Tamil language program, but I'm sure there are a few other similarities in some of the other languages program as well.
Thank you very much for that question, Trustee. I think the reality that we have been undergoing or have experienced with the pandemic is that the summer programs have taken a hit with the number of students that participated. We're very fortunate that over the last little while, we've seen an upsurge again. One of the areas that where we have seen a decrease is in international languages during the summertime. Absolutely. And as you know, Trustee, it does require a certain number of students to generate the instructor for that class. And we are working very closely with various communities across the city and in the schools to see what we can do to encourage the international languages to be in as many schools as possible. There's been a very concerted effort by the program officers and managers in the continuing education department to try to bring awareness to various communities to ensure that there are opportunities, if possible, to have these across the city. The tie-in between the summer and the year-long programs, there is a tie-in in the fact that many of our instructors who are in-school, in-year programs also are instructors in the summer programs. So there is that connection there too. Thank you.
My last question is a bit of a broad question. Are we reviewing the term international languages? Somehow that framing kind of communicates a sense of non-belonging to local. These are Canadian languages used in Canada. These are languages of the local community, and I understand it was coined many years ago. Just wanted to flag it. May not need an answer now, but yeah.
Thank you, Trustee. And you made a very valid point. It is the terminology that we currently that is in place with the ministry who funds these programs, but it's definitely something that we will take back with your advice.
Thank you. So I just want to acknowledge that Trustee Rishkandrahaja has joined us. Welcome. And we're going to end off the questions with Chair Chernoslin.
Thank you. I think in this meeting, it's just Trustee Chernoslin.
Trustee Chernoslin.
But anyways, my question, I don't know if we have staff in the room to answer this or not, but I wonder, I know not all of our schools have air conditioning. And so I just wondered, I mean, I assume part of how you choose the locations for these summer programs is where we feel there's the biggest need for it in terms of the priorities of the board. And so I just wondered whether we find, is air conditioning a challenge for us? Because obviously, as you know, with climate change, this becomes more and more significant, and whether I know this isn't, we probably don't have perhaps the right staff in the room, but I guess I just wondered, is that having an impact on how we decide where these programs go, and a negative impact, I guess, is what I'm worrying about. Thank you.
Could we have the staff respond? Thank you.
And through the chair, I'm going to turn it back to System Superintendent Chang, and make no mistake about it, this is a question that is asked each year around summer school programming. So Mr. Chang, go right ahead, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, it is a consideration, Trustee Cherneslin, when schools do nominate themselves to be a summer school site. It's not the only consideration, because obviously we look at equity of access for learners across the system. We look at, you know, if some of the schools might be undergoing major renovations, which might unfortunately prevent it from being a summer school site, despite the fact that it has air conditioning. We do work very closely with the school principals who are interested in becoming a summer school site. We work closely with the superintendents to make sure that there is some summer school sites across the system, especially in some of our priority areas. Air conditioning can be a factor, but I would suggest that it's not primarily a consideration, simply because we encourage outdoor learning also in the summertime. We want students to be outside. We want them to be engaged in as many different kinesthetic activities. So it is one piece to a bigger, I guess, variables that we consider for all of these sites. But thank you for asking that question.
Okay, thank you. And I have a second question. Is that okay if I ask
Yes,
another?
please.
Okay, thank you, through the chair. I wonder, so, you know, I know we saw a dip in summer programming during the height of the pandemic, but it does seem that there's been increased interest in, as we have been sort of in more recent years of the pandemic, it seems to be growing. And we hear from a lot of parents that they're looking for this, and it does seem to be that everything sells out very quickly, or not sells out because it's not fee for service, but you know what I mean? Like the spots are being taken up very quickly, and at the secondary level, sometimes those classes are full right away. So I just wonder, do we have the funding we need to, I know this is a report based on what's happened in the past, but looking to the future, do staff feel as though we are adequately funded, or are there particular pieces that we feel we need more funding in, because we could grow those programs within within a reasonable, like, obviously we don't want to overextend ourselves and say that we could grow a program and not meet that demand somehow, but is there a sweet spot that we feel we could do, but we don't necessarily have the funding? And if we have limitations, I just wonder, in that regard, I wonder if you might be able to provide us with some input on that.
So I will turn it over to Mr. Chang.
Thank you again, and through the chair. That's a great question, Trustee Cherneslin. I will share with you that when it comes to the continuing education funding model, the way in which we run our programs is based on the students that are in the programs, and so we are pretty much at a somewhat of a sweet spot in the number of students that we've been able to serve. So, for example, I think, as I was mentioning earlier with Trustee Shan, the International Languages program, for example, requires a certain number of students on the roster in order to generate the funding for the teacher. And so similarly, with the secondary credit programs, we also require a certain number of students in order to have the funding for the teachers in order to teach these subjects. We offer it upfront in anticipation that we're going to get the interest, and clearly that's the case. So it is definitely a dance in terms of making sure that the projected numbers that we set forth and the teachers that we want to hire are going to be met with the number of students who would be registered in these programs. I don't know, I see that Executive Officer Snyder is also with us. Perhaps he might have some further insights because he is our expert with budgets and finance, but that is the general way in which we approach the programs that we do offer, because the funding is tied to the number of students in these programs.
Thank you.
No, I have nothing further to add. I think Peter did a great job.
Okay, thank you very much. Presumably there might still be certain areas where we would seek further funding, perhaps, like focus on youth, or are there particular areas where we would like to grow it, or no?
Could we have staff speak to that?
So I think when it comes to funding, through the chair, I think that based on the programming that we offer, some of the challenges that we face comes back to the timing. Part of what we try to do within the summer school program is ensure that we have qualified teachers in order to support the particular programs that we'd like to run. And then we want to make sure that the numbers actually align with the number of staff that we've put in place. When there's a greater demand, we then try and get additional staff in order to support the actual programming. The unfortunate challenge, though, is that we won't know the actual numbers of students or the demand until a little bit later in the summer. So we're not always able to provide clarity around what will be needed from a programming perspective. And I understand the money part, but the money part is also driven by what programs will be offered and number of students that will actually be demanding those particular programs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So now we are going to move to accept the report. If there's a mover. A mover and a seconder. Okay, moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Trustee King. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, the scribe is open.
Trustee Shan in favor.
Turnus Lynn in favor.
Dawson in favor.
Just waiting for the result.
Hastings in favor.
Do we have all the votes in? So that's carried 8-0. So our next item is adjournment. Could I have a mover and a seconder for adjournment? Moved by Trustee King, seconded by Trustee Rajwani, and all in favor? No objections. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.